Hi, can we do your passing thing again? Yeah.
Hello. Do you remember my voice? Do we have to do the clapping thing again? Anyone? Yes, clapping? No? Maybe? It's so good. Thank you for self-regulating. I appreciate it. In the future, when we need, if we're asked to do announcements or whatever, we're going to do the moose horns. If you see other people doing the moose horns, you should also do them. The catch is, when your hands are here, it means your mouth is not making any noise. Biological function. Doing one means I'm just clapping again. Thank you so much. Here are the people who are actually running things. I just show up.
Catherine DeGazio. We'd like to ask all the organizers and volunteers to come up here very briefly. We've had an amazing group and an amazing team of volunteers put this together. We want to make sure you guys see who they are because they're going to be the people that are helping you during this event. All right. We are students, researchers, and parents at the MIT Media Lab. 3 of us just had babies in the past 2 months, baby Pal and baby Leor. Where's baby Pal? Baby Pal, there's baby Leor. Also nursing. We have Tal Akatab, Alexander Mitchell, Sei Wang, Dave Raymond. We have Taylor Levy, nursing a baby. And that is all of us. So we wanted to go around and introduce ourselves a little bit. Okay. So how many people are here and ready to make the breast pump not suck? So our organizing group came together about 6 months ago. And part of the reason that we're here is that we are parents, and we are parents to be, and we are MIT students and researchers here at the Media Lab. And we're all united with a common and pretty universal concern, which is that we want the best for our kids. And so the very, very exhaustive research shows that the best for babies and for their moms and for their families is breast milk. And like a lot of aspects of maternal health, this is not just a personal decision, but it's a huge and global public health issue. And yet, it's really hard, it's really sucky, and it takes a huge level of commitment to reach the 1-year breastfeeding recommended by the American Physicians Association and the 2 years recommended by the World Health Organization. And the hundreds and hundreds of breast pump user ideas and stories that we have collected and that we have here today for you guys to look at attest to all of the challenges that we face these days. So part of the reason we're here today is to say it shouldn't be this difficult for many women and families to do what's best for your children and do what's best for public health. Once we started looking at breastfeeding, we also started looking at the space of maternal health more generally. As Robin Churchill, a public health researcher and midwife who was at our last hackathon said, maternal health lags beyond other sectors for innovation. And so we realized that as researchers at the Media Lab, which is an institution that's a leader of the discourse around innovation, engineering, and design, we are in a perfect place to start doing something about this. But we wanted to start really concretely with a really specific challenge. And so that's why today's hackathon is about simply making the breast pump not suck. So while you're hacking, we want you to remember that this is not just about the machine, but also about the experience and the context of being a new family. We encourage hacks that make the pump smaller, more efficient, quieter, smarter, but we also encourage hacks that rethink the spaces where people pump and how they feel when they are pumping and who supports them in their pumping and breastfeeding. And we really love efforts that can start to hack some of the more systemic problems that new families face, like the lack of paid maternity leave and early childhood education. We have materials, you want to clap for that, you can. We have materials
on hand at that table right there in the back. To support hardware prototyping, we're going to have a 3D printer a little later on, and we have a GitHub repository of almost 1,000 user-submitted ideas for how to improve the breast pump. So here's how it's going to go down. Right now, we'll listen to inspirational talks from people who are innovating in this space. We'll hear why maternal health is ripe for creativity, investment, and innovation. Our esteemed speakers are also the judges for today's prizes, so you'll want to listen closely to their advice.
After that, we'll have an interactive session to create your hackathon teams. So if you have come with an idea, start thinking now of how you can compress that idea into a 1-minute pitch. Each person that has an idea will get 1 minute and no longer to come up here and pitch their idea to gather a team. And if you didn't come with an idea, that's totally fine, so you just come prepared to listen. People will pitch their ideas, and once the pitches are done, you'll get up and go find the person whose idea you like to work on. And then this will be around at 1:30, we'll have lunch, and then the hacking basically starts. And we'll just hack all afternoon. We'll have various kinds of demos and tutorials, including lactation consultant demos, and hardware demos, and 3D printing demos. So there's lots of stuff on hand to look at and engage with to inspire you. And then we'll regroup today around 6 p.m. to do a quick check-in as to where teams are at their
During the hacking, we have a ton of people we're calling roaming experts, and not a lot of the folks that you see right here. So they're wearing red t-shirts now, and later on they'll be wearing colored hats to signify what their expertise is. And I think on all of your tables there's a little key, and you guys got the same you came into. So let's quickly go around and just have them briefly say their names and their expertise, so you know who you can come up to and bother later on. I'll model this. So my name is Alexis Hope, and you can talk to me about human-centered design.
My name is Catherine Ignazio. You can talk to me about software development and coding, breastfeeding and pumping, and data visualization.
Max Petrol, you can talk to me about mobile and software.
Wei Wang, I guess software and hardware, 3D printing stuff and modeling stuff.
And new baby.
I'm Dave Raymond. You can talk to me about whatever you want. I'm a good listener.
I feel very similar. Also, I want to say, if you don't have a shirt and you want to, if you don't have a hat and you want to, just use the registration desk and we'll suit you up. Alexander, did I say that right?
Hi, I'm Tal Achisu. Talk to me if you need help with anything, but particularly software, hardware, design, user experience, ideation, validation, those kind of things.
Hey, I'm Corey. Let me know if you need help with graphic design or UI.
Corey made the awesome logo on our t-shirt. Hi, I'm Julie. Wearable tech and product attachment.
Hi, I'm Savannah. Talk to me if you help with design and productivity for babysitting.
My name's Matt. I'm a mechanical design engineer. My specialty is packaging.
I'm Lilia, and I'd love to talk to any of you about graphic and industrial design.
I'm Dan. Talk to me about mechanical design, sensors, Arduino.
Hi, I'm Matt. So material science.
I'm Koji. I'm a mechanical engineer and anything product development related.
I'm Kara. I'm a student in the graduate program in science writing. Please come talk to me about your experiences so that I can be excited about them and tell more people about them.
Hi, I'm Billy, you're a pharmacist and a biologist. Sorry for my terrible French accent that you took to me about saying.
Hi, I'm Willow. I will be your temporally compulsive person who tries to keep everyone on time. And I also love documentation, and I will help you draw stick figures that make what you do accessible to everyone.
I'm Colin, and you need somebody to get really excited about your idea.
And I'm Ed. I can do software, hardware, and I can help you organize your thoughts and brainstorm.
And I'm Kevin talking about building fun software.
And I should know that our speakers and our sponsors are also on hand to answer all your questions. And I wanted to, oh hi, also a roaming expert.
Hi, Lori Adams. I'm an RN in FECLC. If there's any questions of accessibility, that's what I'm here to make people understand that you need to move technology to everyone.
The trick about using experts is to be proactive. So they're going to be coming around and roving, that's the roving term, but also come and find them. There's no reason that you should experience frustration. Experience joy and creativity. And so we'll help take on the frustration parts.
So one thing I want to mention before we get started is that this event has been very generously supported by our awesome sponsors, who you can see up here around the room, who have already been innovating in this space, and in some cases for many, many years. They have deep knowledge of maternal health issues and health technology as well in some cases. So we encourage you to call on them, use their expertise during the event. So their names are Beckman Technology, Medela, Naya Health, Edgemond Mar Ventures, Lansino, Simple Wishes, Pumping Essentials, Moxley, Mama Jammas, and Hamida. And we also want to acknowledge the support of several organizing partners here at MIT, the MIT Center for Civic Media, and the Center for Bits and Atoms, as well as iPatoon, a local nonprofit organization who is an organizing partner.
Our sponsors are underwriting amazing prizes. So the first prize team, sponsored by Vecna, will receive $3,000 and a trip for 2 members to Silicon Valley to pitch their ideas. Venture capitalist investors. That's a secret prize. We just look at cab.
You guys need to fly to California and meet with VCs to pitch your idea.
Super cool.
And that prize is sponsored by Edgemond Mar Ventures, so thank you. The second place team will receive $2,000, thanks to Medela, and a homemade knit breast pump cozy made by new mom Jessica Barnes. Very cute. Third prize, courtesy of startup Naya Health, is $1,000. And we have an additional prize of $500 sponsored by Moxley for outstanding user-centered design.
Let's give a big hand to the sponsors. We don't want you to get too hung up right now on judging and prizes and criteria and things like that. But the one thing we do want to say in advance of forming teams is that one of the criteria for judging is the diversity of your team, so the diversity of skills within your team. So keep that in mind as you're working together. One of the main goals for this event today is to bring different groups of people talking to each other. So engineers to lactation consultants, pumping moms to designers, MIT students to business innovators. So that is going to be one of the criteria, along, of course, with creativity, originality, and those other things that's on the top of mind.
One last thing before we hand it off to our speakers and get things started. The bathrooms are over here to my right, down this hallway. There's a nursing mom area, a kid area, and a private pumping office down the hallway to the left. Over there. And once you guys have broken up into teams, there are a number of small conference rooms and areas that you can use for breakout work, please.
So, without further ado, we want to turn it over to our inspirational speakers. One word on timing, we're really trying to stay on time. Willa's going to help us with that, but we will be holding all of our speakers to 8 minutes max. And if they go over 8 minutes, we will be playing some experimental music that was made by a hacked Breastpump, and it sounds like this. Alright, so hopefully we don't have to hear that again. That's what it sounds like. You're a speaker and you're going on and on, you'll know that that's your cue stuff. Really, without further ado, we want to introduce our first speaker, and who's also a member of our advisory board. Her name is Nancy Holtzman, and she's totally amazing. So, Nancy, please. Thank you.
Don't start my timer yet. I was told 5 to 8 minutes, and I've never been accused of being brief. So this talk title was given to me, and it's not a title I would typically choose or give. I would much rather talk about how moms breastfeed successfully and not focus on why it's so hard. And in fact, that is a common complaint when we talk to moms who've taken a breastfeeding preparation class after they've had their baby and some kind of class. One of the most common comments is, no one told me it was going to be hard, and hard it was. And really, there's a delicate balance between providing information and helping prepare women challenges about growth and not scaring them away when on something goes wrong. Because the bottom line is, breastfeeding is easy. Yeah, breastfeeding works. That's why we're still here today as a species. Babies are actually born with skills and reflexes that need breastfeeding, and mom's body is busy caring for nursing during pregnancy. In utero, the baby practices sucking and swallowing, and once born, the baby has a bunch of reflexes that lead toward breastfeeding. You've never seen something called the breast crawl video, Google that later, and it will show you how brand new babies, once born, will actually use stepping reflexes, their feet, to push their way up mom's belly, work their way all the way up to her breasts. The areolas actually darken during pregnancy, and that becomes a visual bullseye for the baby to find. And then the rooting reflex, the baby will bob and move their head and mouth around until they actually come right up to her nipple and latch on for amniotic fluid, and her colostrum smell the same, so the baby can find their way to the breast. And once the baby latches on all by himself, after that, it's just all about frequent milk removal. The more the baby comes to the breast, the more quickly mom's milk comes in. The more the baby nurses, the more milk she makes. See? It's easy. I wish it was easy. The fact is we don't live in the perfect world, and even a relatively minor bump in the road, like a sore nipple, which is not a minor thing by all means, but even a minor temporary glitch can become an overwhelming obstacle. We also have a toddler and a newborn who wants to eat constantly, and a partner working 2 jobs, and a box of ready-to-feed formula, which mysteriously arrived on your doorstep or was sent home from the hospital with you just in case. The majority of women in the U.S., 80% of them plan to breastfeed and generally start breastfeeding. Half of them quit during the first couple of weeks. The issues that make breastfeeding hard are very interrelated. From the baby side, the mom side, and then our social or situational issues. The normal birth scenario I spoke about a minute ago almost never happens in United States hospitals. In today's fast-paced hospitals, more typically babies are whisked away, they're weighed and measured, they're bathed and swaddled, they're presented to the parents for photos wrapped like a burrito for the first feeding. Babies often are born early, and even though you may not think of a 7-pound, 37-week baby as a premature baby, you know that there are significant differences, even for babies born a week or 2 before full term. And we routinely, of course, these days care for tiny babies as small as a pound, born in 28 weeks. Those babies will be in the hospital for a good 3 to 4 months before they're able to be discharged home. Those babies need breast milk more than any other babies. So relatively minor issues like normal newborn jaundice, things like that also disrupt breastfeeding by creating separation between the mom and baby or lead to early supplementation. I'm not going to talk about why exclusive breastfeeding is important in this session, but catch me later and I'll talk a little bit about mucosa and sensitizing to foreign proteins and the bacteria in the intestines, which is a very critical issue. Oral anatomy, also, most people look at this picture and see a baby crying. All the lactation consultants in the picture, in the room, look at the baby and say, I said something. So it's not just the baby's oral anatomy, the baby can have a high palate or a lip height, or sometimes it's the mom's anatomy, and sometimes it's just the goodness of fit. A baby may have an oral issue, but mom may have a very flexible breast, and so they actually have no problem. Sometimes it's just the baby and the mom put together can create some breastfeeding challenges. This list is really short and sweet. It's the most common reasons moms give for stopping breastfeeding. And notice too, it's not actual low milk production that's listed. It's concerns about milk production. A phrase I use daily in my practice in talking to moms is that normal newborn behavior is shocking to the uninitiated. Yes, he does want to eat again. And
And one of these things that they all have in common is lack of support. So all of these things can be improved with education and support. And the most significant support network for a new mom is not actually her healthcare provider. She cares most about the support that her partner and her family and her friends bring her. But of course, also it's going to be critical that her healthcare providers and her employer are going to be supportive about her decision to breastfeed or return to employment and make breast milk. I can make this list much, much, much longer. Everybody knows that breast is best, but, and there's that but, it's a bottle-eating society. I generally never use the phrase breast is best because I find it's a little bit judgmental, it's aspirational, but it also seems to beg that but at the end. Breast is best, but my kids have formula and they're fine. Or, I'd really like to go to dance with you on Friday, but I need to wash my hair. Every one of these topics can be a talk in itself. I'm happy to talk with you about any of these and more later. But basically, moms are going to be judged if they're breastfeeding, they're going to be judged if they're not breastfeeding, and in some ways, culturally, the deck is stacked against them when it comes to reaching their breastfeeding goals. 70% of women return back to work before their child is a year old, and you have to be very, very determined, and in some ways very fortunate to be able to exclusively breastfeed in today's United States culture. Well, how does it work? Thorough and effective milk removal at least 8 times in 24 hours. I use the 8 ball as a good visual reminder, but 8 times in 24 hours, hopefully by baby, but if not by baby, by pump, early and often. What happens during the earliest days after birth will have a huge impact on the ability to bring in and maintain milk supply. If a baby isn't nursing or isn't nursing well, mom still needs to move that milk at least 8 times in 24 hours. And we know that a pump alone, especially in the earliest days, a pump alone is going to be less effective than the combination of a pump and hand expression or manual expression. We call this hands-on pumping, using massage, compression, and then hand expression in addition to the pump. I'm not going to get into anatomy and physiology here, but this will be on the final exam. Prolactin prolactin helps the breast make milk. It's a combination of the baby's stimulation, sucking on the breast and the mother's brain, which causes oxytocin to be let down. Oxytocin is the hormone causing tiny connective tissue contractions that pushes the milk down and out. And we call this milk letdown. Oxytocin can also be released just by the mom's brain, so if she's sleeping with the baby or she hears the baby cry. Babies use suction to draw the nipple and areola into their mouth, and they use their tongue and jaw to compress the areola against the roof of the mouth. Most pumps use vacuum to draw the nipple and areola into the tunnel, and where the flange lands out, the compression occurs. Notice there is no pushing on or squeezing of the nipple. It's breastfeeding. It's not nipple feeding. I'm almost out of time. These pump factors are critical. We had hundreds of comments and suggestions on these topics. The first hackathon last May, I was thrilled. I brought my pump testing gauge because the teams working were not familiar with things like 500 millimeters of mercury are not good for skin. We have lots of issues with entitlement and not being allowed to pump in lactation rooms, maybe a bathroom stall. I know that all of you guys are going to figure this all out today. Thank you.
So Nancy is going to be on hand all day long. We have what we're calling Nancy's Cozy Corner, which is the kid and nursing area back here. And she's super happy and knows a lot about lactation and babies and new families. So next up, I want to introduce Catherine Recker. Is Catherine here? No, Catherine is not here. Okay, Catherine is not here. So next up, I want to introduce Mar Hentinson, and she is, along with her company, Benjamin and Mar Ventures, are the sponsors of the trip out to California. So she's going to talk to us a little bit about the investment landscape in general health. So I'll just go.
All Right, well, it's great to be here. I'm so excited. This is the first hackathon where babies present. Yeah. Took some pictures and sent them home. This is like the coolest thing ever. So, congratulations for putting it together. Anyways, I was also given this title, so I'll try my best to make you excited about this today. But I also thought I would make you excited about the price. So if I'll talk for a few minutes about ourselves, and then if there is time, and we'll get music on, and I'll show you. Okay. So this is us. That's our hard ventures. It's a free movement on us. It's an early stage fund. My partner the school last session and I were based in Palo Alto. We invest in all sorts of companies. Here's some of them, and some of the logos you'll recognize. We are not a healthcare fund, but we do some healthcare investments, and mostly our goal is to invest in great founders and that addressing big problems. So we think this hackathon is about a big problem, and I'm sure there are great people here. This is why I'm here. This is a little bit about our community is more technically legally at Breastpump. We actually we don't take a salary. It's very different. All the money that we have is invested back in the community. So we've done a lot of things that are nonprofit or inviting over, etc. So we host people in our space for free. We find events. We have speakers. We have great speakers that ranging from very young to the founders of towns here. It's very exciting there. We also have a great hack. It's coming up, so Hack for Life. So I also work with that in philosophers and real social problems. So anyway, that's about us. So now it's an exciting part of why I'm here for maternal health investing. And the first thing I did was actually go to Wikipedia and try to understand what is maternal health. So when you actually go to Wikipedia and read what is maternal health, you'll actually get this whole thing. I highlighted the last, I'll read it, that maternal health is the health of women in pregnancy, childbirth, and postpartum period. It encompasses a healthcare dimension of family planning, preconception, prenatal and postnatal care, in order to reduce maternal morbidity and mortality. So I highlighted the last sentence because then you actually search on Google for maternal health, early stage investing, startup investing. You'll end up with a bunch of nonprofits or people that are trying to actually solve the last problem, which is maternal mortality. So, unfortunately, venture capital, if you say I'm addressing maternal death, it's not something that resonates and that a lot of the men that will be sitting across from you know. So it's just not a big thing for the US, right? So that's why when we go online, a lot of things that come up. It's not even a category in some of the databases. Anyways, so if you actually redefine it and scratch the last sentence, I wasn't sure what to replace it with, so I didn't try. But if you just say, hey, what's this whole industry of big pregnancy, childbirth, and postpartum, it's actually a huge industry. There's a lot of women, there's a lot of babies. And if anybody, I think the major corporations know. I'm not sure if anybody else has Target reaches out for new moms, but it's an incredibly important time to reach the consumer. So, anyways, venture opportunities, I'm going to say, do exist, and unfortunately, like I was saying, I can't really group them easily because I didn't have the time to do it. But here are some people that I actually know personally, and they're in that space. One of them is really big, is Natera, they're about to go IPO and genetic testing. So, it's a huge contribution. The other one is Glow, it's like the app. They raised $6 million. Maybe some of them will develop a lot of crack baby. So there's many more. Again, I don't have a complete list. I think people, when they see the opportunity, really invest in it. There are more opportunities. I'll talk about the Breastpump. I have 3 kids, and I've nursed the 3 of them, and I've used those Mandela pumps. So I know this is a big problem, and the product is incredibly unsatisfactory, to say it politely. It's not perfect. I work after work in, I don't know, 2 months. And I still dream of that sound. So I would close the door of my office and everybody would know I was coming to hear the whole thing. It's crazy. But it's a huge market. The sales in this just Breastpump is over $200 million. There's no innovation. I mean, literal innovation. I mean, who wants to do that? We had somebody come talk to us about it, and my partner was like, really, this is a problem? And, they just don't know. Right? So it's a big opportunity. And we're looking, the reason I'm here, and I made a trip to California just for this, is because we think it's a great opportunity for places to put their money. This is what we look for: big market, an exceptional team, and some IP and innovation. Right? I think the big market is not a check mark here. So the things that are, that we really need to look for is an exceptional accounting team and IP and innovation. So I'm going to let this forward. I'm running out of time. But we're sponsoring this trip because I only have 2 minutes left. I'm going to play a video. We love for whoever is interested in coming to California and spend time in our space. We'd love to do that. And I'm just going to leave you with the video. It doesn't have something that is this summer. We're doing it actually All right, so our next speaker is Beth Kolkow. Here she comes. So Beth is at the University of Washington and also at Shift Labs. She's going to talk to us a little bit about the innovations that she's been working in this space for quite some time.
Thanks. So I'm super excited to be here, and continuing with the theme also was, this title was suggested, but it's totally suitable because I'm a big believer in impact, and there's a really big gap from ideas or innovations to actually having impact when it comes to global health. So I'm here with so this is a second startup. He's a YC alum and keeps us on track. And I need to start that timer. Okay, so I started this company because I had been a professor. I still am a professor for 20 years, and I watched a gazillion ideas, like really great ideas, die in my lab. And they were ideas for low-cost innovations for global health. And it's just sort of impossible to commercialize low-cost innovations. Every now and then something makes it, but by and large, it's really hard. And that was super depressing. So the trigger point for me was a project I worked on with Alexis, one of the organizers. We worked on a low-cost ultrasound project, which was amazing, primarily because of her awesome human centered design skills. And then we tried to bring it into the world. So we met with all these ultrasound manufacturers. We said, we're academics, we published on this. You should just take what we've done. We were working with midwives in Uganda. They liked it. Actually, they loved it. And they all said, no, thank you. And said, no, thank you, over and over again. And finally, some VP took mercy on me and took me aside and said, you know, we could make cheaper technology, but it wouldn't support the cost of our sales force. So we have no motivation to do so. And that was the moment that I decided I wanted to find people who wanted to bridge that gap between great ideas and actually having an impact. So innovation is great, but saving lives is even better. And it's also really hard. So what we do is we focus on issues of design and engineering and how to really optimize those for emerging markets or developing world environments. And that's where the low cost comes in. But you know, we'll sell things to anyone who will buy them, so we'll sell them in the US too. But we really think about what does a low resource community need. And distribution in those markets is also incredibly hard. So these are some of the things that fill that gap between having a great idea and actually bringing it through to where it can have impact. And we've been told by most people that making something low cost in the medical space, which is a highly regulated space, financially sustainable is impossible. We believe that's not true, and you can talk to us later this weekend about why you think that, to why we know that. So this is an example of where we started with our company. We sat down, we talked to a bunch of doctors and nurses, and we said, what's hard about your life? And they gave us a whole bunch of ideas about things that were hard. And we chose some that a lot of people mentioned, and one of them was administering drugs and fluids without an infusion pump. So how many people here have ever been in a hospital or know someone who's been in a hospital? And maybe that person had a tube in their arm and some fluid flowing into it, right? And they had a pump that was controlling the flow of it, most likely, especially in the US. So there's 3, maybe 4 million people in the world who get their health care without infusion pumps. And so if you're in that setting and you're getting some drugs and fluids, this is what happens. Is the nurse is going to come over, and she or he is going to count the drops as they fall. And they're going to say, okay, so how many drops was that in a minute? And then there are 4 sizes of this made in the world. And so depending on which size they have, they'll do the mental math to convert drops per minute into milliliter per hour flow rate. So, for example, if you're with maternal health, if you're on a Pitocin drip to help avoid maternal postpartum hemorrhage, that's how it's going to happen. That's how it's administered. 80% of the time, people are making mistakes that are at least 20% off the mark. It's a terrible process, terrible. So that was one of the problems that people said was really challenging for them. So we sat down with a bunch of hackers and we said, okay, can you solve this problem cheaply? And that was the first, how's that showing up? Yeah, so that was our first hack. And we thought, okay, this is great. We validated it, we tested it, it worked, it could read the drops. And we thought, this is great. We're 90% of the way there. And so then we wanted to, finish it up. And so we made some other prototypes and made some nicer looking prototypes. And then we started testing it. And we took it to India, we took it to Belize, we took it to Kenya. We tested with a bunch of nurses, anesthesiologists, and they hated it. So they hated the design. They hated the fact that it clipped around the chamber and they couldn't see the drops at the same time. And this issue of trust was huge because they couldn't see the drops. They just saw this number flashing. Going, well, this is ridiculous. Why is that number jumping around? I can just count those drops and I know what's happening. So then we had to redesign the algorithms, and we had to redesign the housing. So we worked really hard at that. Oh, you have one too. So we worked on that really hard with the design. We wanted people to trust it. We really believe in making products that meet people where they are, not where we want them to be. So we designed it around trust, and then we put this alarm on it because these health workers are totally overworked. There's too many patients, not enough staff, so they don't want to keep going back to the bedside and find out when a bag is empty or when the rates change. So we worked, and that was kind of our second 90% of the problem. So I realized that I'm bad at math, first of all. And that getting this to where it could scale was really challenging. And then we sat down to make it, to actually manufacture it. I think you could probably guess where this is going, right? That's a third 90%. So my math skills even worse. And then there's the question of selling it, which, yeah. So basically, 360% is what you gotta give for impact. And I also think of this 360 degrees, and we spend a lot of time kind of chasing our tail in circles. So it's hard. But these are some of the things we've learned, and I'm running out of time, and there's something I want to get to at the end here. But basically, a distribution contract with a multinational company is not the key to impact. Happy to talk to you about why that's true. The other thing is working exclusively with the public health sector globally leaves a lot of impact on the table. In most of the emerging economies, somewhere between 50 and 80% of the healthcare dollars are spent in the private sector. So that's really important. And also a lot of innovation never moves forward because of fear. Fear of regulatory issues, fear of logistics issues, tied up in distribution. Yes, it's hard, it's not impossible. So be fearless. But I want to talk about what we're doing that has to do with Breastpump. We're not actually doing the pump, but we're working with a global health organization called PATH, and they have a project to support milk banks. So WHO says that exclusive breastfeeding with mother's milk is best for babies for 6 months especially. But sometimes mother's breast milk is not available. And then you have milk banks in hospitals, clinics, commercial pasteurizers for those milk banks because they're using donor milk. They cost around $40,000, basically big dishwashers. So we're working with PATH to commercialize a safe, affordable solution for flash feed pasteurization. This is what it looks like now. It's been in South African hospitals for a couple years, called Ponastra. You bring your own kitchen equipment, and we give you a sensor platform and a smartphone with a monitoring app. So for a couple $100, you can safely pasteurize breast milk and have a community milk bank in a hospital or a clinic. And you can enable babies to get breast milk, and I think Koji will talk about it, maybe he'll pitch something. Anyway, so this is what we're working on. We're trying to simplify the hardware, make it cheaper, make it easier, and I want to build something not just for milk banks, but also for moms. Active impact is possible. Contact us.
Great to see how far you guys have come with all the projects. So next up in our talks is Janica Alvarez from Naya Health. We are really excited when we first talked about our very first hackathon back in May. Really early on, we were contacted by Naya, and we were super thrilled to learn that there is a startup in this space. They're out in Silicon Valley, California, and they're doing some really awesome stuff. So, Janica, thanks so much for being here.
It's really exciting, and I'm so happy that so many people so just a little bit about my personal story. So I am a mother of 3. I have babies about 12 months apart, 13 months apart. And so what happened in my professional life is I started my first one in 2008. And I knew that I wanted to breastfeed because I had done so much research like any mom would do. And I found out our reaching into the breast pump. So I started kind of investing in breast pumps that I wanted to purchase. Anyway, went back to work. It was a very hard transition for me. And I remember coming home one day after using a breast pump for about 2 weeks and actually told my husband, who has over a decade of medical device experience, and said, Jeff, if you can't fix this pump, I don't think I can make it longer. So he took my pump out to the garage, he tinkered with it, and he actually made it more efficient. And so from that point on, we knew that we were on something. And so what we had to do is actually to spend the next few years making some more babies. I now have 3 sons, and really kind of cataloging all the ideas that we have around innovation in the juvenile space, because I really feel like it's a very overlooked space. I really feel like the last product in this entire space is the breast pump. Like all of the other speakers have said, it's been minimally innovated on for the past 2 decades, actually. So that's interesting for us. So what we've done at Naya Health is we actually we have a breast pump. It's radically different. We have a lot of IP around our breast pump.
It's actually more efficient in the sense that it pumps out milk faster because it is a little bit more efficient with expressing the milk. So obviously we're going to express a little bit more milk every time, about 50%. So that's pretty significant for us. And it's quiet and it's small, and we continue to innovate on that. So we're very excited about that. Last couple of weeks have been very exciting for us, in particular because we were nearing the close of our Series A $1 million. So that's extremely exciting. So one of the reasons that we're here, and actually Karen Drexler in the back is our board member, and the reason why we're here is we're recruiting. We want to hire 2 engineers, so please come speak to me if you have some hardware or software experience. In terms of education and awareness, I know I'm kind of going off topic here, but I'm still a little dissatisfied with how much support that new moms receive in America, especially with the transition back to work. I think that we're getting a little better about the support, but again, I think that we need to be more open as mothers talking to one another about the different resources. I think we need to put pressure on employers to actually facilitate the transition back to work and make it a little easier for moms to continue to provide breast milk to their children, so that we can meet the recommendations of the thought leaders. In terms of different innovation in the space, I still feel like there's so much more room, particularly around understanding, for example, nutrition, maternal nutrition, and how that impacts baby in utero. I think there's a lot of research that needs to happen with that. We just have a very high level understanding of how that impacts baby. The other thing that I think I want to point out is mental health. I think it's something that people just don't talk about. Postpartum depression is huge. Breastfeeding can't help with that. I think it brings it down about 20%. But still, there's a lot of women that suffer from postpartum depression. So definitely just raising awareness around providing resources and support to moms is incredibly huge. So moving forward, United Health, like I said, we're pretty far along, and we're very excited to launch next year. So we're here, we're looking around, we're providing support and answering questions where we can, but we're also recruiting. So we're going to come talk with us. I think I probably is the fastest speaker up here. Yeah? Okay. Really?
That's great. Well, my question is, when, for the people who are moms in the audience, when can we expect to come and buy it?
Sure, summer of next year.
Summer of next year.
Yeah, and the one thing I will say though, and maybe most of everyone knows, is that breast pumps, electric breast pumps, are class 2 medical devices. And so there is a process of going through. So we're during that process right now, submission.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys. Excellent. So we wanted to hear from both the newer startups in the space and then also the leaders in the space. So we're really pleased to initiate a conversation with Medela, who has been making breast pumps for many, many years. There's probably many of the women in the audience have experiences with. They make the flagship products in a lot of ways. They make the products that are rechargeable. They make the double electrics. They make the portable hands-free devices. And one thing that we learned about Medela in this process is that they also do a lot of research-driven innovation. So here today is Irene Zalby. Is that correct? Great. And she's going to be talking to us a little bit about the scientific advances around breast milk. So thank you very much.
Just waiting for the screen to come up. There we go. Excellent. So I am a nurse and a lactation consultant, and I live locally. In fact, I went to school at a university across the river. And so I've been working with Medela for the last 15 years as a clinical education specialist. And one of the opportunities that I've had with Medela is to work closely with the research team at the University of Western Australia. Under the auspices of Professor Emeritus now, Peter Hartman. Peter Hartman is probably the world's foremost expert on the composition of human milk. His laboratory at Perth
is the center for a lot of research, not only about how babies breastfeed, how mothers produce milk, and research on the understanding of the anatomy of the lactating breast, but also about the composition of human milk. When you think about where we are now compared to where we were 10 years ago with understanding what's in breast milk, we're really on the cusp of understanding how much of wonderful, valuable source of not only food, but also for immunity human milk actually offers. So Medela has been proud to be a sponsor of much of the research at the University of Western Australia. And the research I'm going to share with you today is actually part of the funding that Medela has been able to provide. So I want to share with you Dr. Mark Cregan and his understanding of the composition of human milk. So the University of Western Australia, the Hartman team works in the biochemistry department at the university. And Mark was actually looking at the composition of human milk. Just lo and behold, he found what he suspected was a stem cell in human milk. The stem cells have been identified in the breast of lactating mothers, but why were they even in human milk? And lo and behold, he uncovered that yes, stem cells were found in human milk. This is another slide, a close-up slide of a stem cell. So the question became, what kind of stem cell is this? And under fluoroscopy, we could see that it actually tested nestin. Nestin is a marker that's only found in stem cells. So with his work, they've actually been able to uncover the fact that stem cells are present in human milk. This was exciting information, but it wasn't magical, because what kind of stem cell was it? Was there something that we could use in research in terms of how stem cells figure into the treatment of many diseases, heart disease, diabetes, and even Parkinson's disease? Is it something that could be used in that way? So the research question then became, what kind of stem cell was it? Was it an embryonic stem cell, or was it an adult stem cell? If it was an adult stem cell, then perhaps the utilization of harvesting these cells may not have been beneficial. The embryonic stem cells are much more exciting to work with in terms of disease entities, because they originate obviously in the blastocyst, and all cell layers come from that. So in terms of disease and diagnosis and research, we're really looking at embryonic cells as the best cells to actually work with. However, the ethical issues of how we obtain embryonic stem cells is something that still is being uncovered. Dr. Fontini Hassitu, however, has taken Mark's work to the next level. And Dr. Fontini has been able to uncover that, lo and behold, these stem cells are actually the kind that we would want to use for research, and that they are, in fact, something different when they are stimulated. And she has identified them to be pluripotent stem cells. So very exciting research is where this stimulation of these cells that can be harvested, and Fontini's work has actually demonstrated that they can be harvested in the laboratory setting, and with the proper stimulation can function as different cells. Dr. Hassitu actually had a degree in plant, or a PhD in plant study, and she has a second degree now in biochemistry from the University of Western Australia. So the question then is, and this is multiple clips to it. The question is, was it a multipotent stem cell that with stimulation could produce cells within its own system? In other words, with stimulation, the stem cell could become part of another type of breast cell, Or was it a pluripotent cell that, for example, with stimulation, this stem cell could mimic a blood cell, a muscle cell, a nerve cell, and a bone cell? And Dr. Hassitu's work has actually demonstrated that this is the area, the focus of these stem cells found in human milk. And in her work, she's actually been able to identify that in the laboratory setting, and in the middle picture is actually a breast stem cell that has been developed into ductal tissue. She has taken, in the laboratory setting, a breast stem cell and actually had it be a heart cell. With proper stimulation, she has configured nerve cells from these breast cells. This is the exciting area of research. Where will this go? Where will this be able to help us in terms of treatment? And maybe this is a wonderful, non-invasive way of getting an abundant supply of pluripotent cells for research. Thank you. Appreciate it. Super fascinating to see what's going on and the fact that we're able to make advances like this. So the last speaker that I want to call to the stage is Deborah Theobald. These, I believe, she'll tell us more sure. I can't be there. Yeah. So Deborah is from Vecna Technologies, one of the co-founders of Vecna Technologies, which is a really amazing health IT company here in Cambridge, Illinois. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you all here today. I'm really grateful for the work that you're putting in. It's going to be helpful too. Unfortunately, my kids hope that's the last one, that I'm not going to be breastfeeding anymore. But I know that for many of the people who are coming into this area, this is really important work. I just wanted to talk. I am the co-founder of Vecna Technologies and the executive director of our nonprofit arm called Vecna Cares. And we started the company in January of 1999. My first child was born in July of 1999. And then it progressed to that, and also to our company. The tools that have really been helpful for me in order to do what I do have been my cell phone, the internet. I don't know how anyone was ever a career woman without a cell phone, and without conference calls and working from home, quote unquote. The breast pump has also been one of the most crucial pieces of tools that I have used to have a career and have a family and try to have this so-called work-life balance. I give it as shower gifts, as strange as that may seem, but it is that important to me as far as having like freedom and just a whole different view on life. I think that there are three major points of what this does for us. I wrote out the notes, so forgive me for peeking at them. Reducing guilt. I think one of the things that women struggle with when they are working is that I'm not doing what's best for my children. When you are able to have a breast pump and to continue breastfeeding even when you come back to work, I think that is a major accomplishment and helps women to really achieve their potential and doing what they know is right without the guilt associated with that on either side. It also increases the equality of the sexes. So I've seen a lot more men involved with the care and raising of their children. And the advent of the breast pump also allows them to have these critical bonding moments with their children. And I found it really sweet to see my husband be able to participate in that way. And also it allows women to be more fluid in the workplace. So you can come into the workplace back after maybe without these like hard stops and painful starts back up in your resume or choices about that. So I think these are really important. So I'll tell you a little bit about, you can go on to the next slide. Sorry, the resolution on this is not very good, but this is a sight we often see. So if you are a nursing mother, this is like hours and hours of your life, right? Looking down at this baby. And I finally took a picture of that with my 5th child so that I would always kind of remember what that was like. But when you can't do that, here are some of the tools that I use. Now, I use a manual because I don't trust power. I'll just do it myself. I know it's going to always be there and I can make it happen. So don't forget the manual breast pump, okay? The battery is great, but whatever. One-handed is super important. You got a lot going on. This thing I didn't really use. I think, that was a good one. This is my most recent. I also have a drawer of dead breast pump parts. So I don't know if any of you have the same thing, but I opened it up and it's like, oh yeah, I lost a little plastic thing, and I lost the other piece, and this one got in the dishwasher and was melted, and that one. And so we can't handle all these things. Make a breast pump that's easy to use. It doesn't have all of these silly little gadgets, little plastic pieces that you have to remember and take out and clean, etc. I would say there's probably 5 stages of breastfeeding, and well, especially with the breast pump. So when you're starting with the breast pump as a new mom, the first one is denial. No way. That can't be what we're doing here. You want me to put that on what? And do what? And sit for how long? Denial and isolation. You hide in a room. You try to not let anyone know that you're pumping at the same time. The second one is anger. I can't believe I have to do this. Can't they do anything better about this? This is really what I'm going to have to do for the next year of my life. Bargaining. Well, okay, if I do this, then maybe my husband can do that, and maybe I won't have to get up in the middle of the night, and it's not so bad. And then depression. No, this is really what it is. This is it. This is the end of my life. And then acceptance. I can't think of a better breast pump. This is the only thing that can happen. Well, how else would you make it any better, right? So when any of you thought, hey, we're doing a hackathon for the breast pump, you thought, what could you do? Haven't we done it all? No, we haven't. These are the 5 steps of grief and accepting grief. We're accepting breast pumps, okay? So let's get over that and make it a more pleasant experience for women everywhere to be able to accept that they're going to be pumping milk out of their body. Let's also think about the ecosystem of breast pumping. Okay, I'm a working mother, I'm a CEO, I need to travel, I need to be talking with people. So you have special times when you can get away and pump, right? So that needs to be efficient, you need to have spaces, you need to have clothing, you need to have packaging, you need to have storage. All of these things need to be thought through. How are we living our lives? Don't make me do something that's crazy and radical. And when I'm carrying around my pouch of breast milk that I've just pumped, does everybody in the world need to know that I'm carrying around a breast pump and a pouch of milk? And make those bags, or do they have to be bags, strong so that they don't break and I don't lose that liquid gold that I just pumped out. Clothing, there's a huge market for this. I don't know why people aren't seeing this. I mean, Gap has maternity, Gap has children's clothes. They've bought into this. Why not the breast pump? People everywhere are into this stuff. Everything around it, accessories, clothing. You think of it, women will buy it. And the places that we create for this and the spaces, even the talking, the words that we use around it need to change to make it more comfortable, more of an accepted part of our lives. And then the last thing that I would say, before you watch the next slide, is that my story is interesting as a working mom in a first world developed country. But that is not 90% of the people's experience around the world. And we need to acknowledge that. And we need to make it easier for everybody around the world to be represented here. And that when we create our technology, that we're taking into account how are people going to be using this in rural Africa. No power, basic education, these types of things, no dishwashers. What is going to be happening with this? No storage, no refrigeration. What are the use cases for them and how are they going to be working with it? With Vecna Cares, we adapt our technology, adapt Vecna's healthcare information technology for use in these rural areas. And I can tell you that when we have considered all of these other people that would be using our technology, our products are stronger and they are better for it. You don't have to consider whether or not there will be a market for it or if it's applicable back here. When you are thinking in a global sense, in a broader sense, you will make a better product for the first world customers and a product that is accessible to the rest of the world as well. And so I would encourage you to keep an open mind about not just the situations and the people and the scenarios that are presented here, but that are represented throughout the whole world. And thank you so much again, and we are very happy to be supporting you in this very esteemed effort.
Thank you so much, Debbie, that's awesome. And maybe we can harvest those parts for hacking later on. So these are the speakers. Most of these folks are going to be here throughout the day. Really encourage you to call on them, talk to them, and work with them as well. I'm going to turn it over now to Willow, who is going to guide our team assembly exercise. So, Willow, take it away.
All right. I still kind of prefer yelling, but apparently everyone else prefers it when I use a mic. That's fine. One, thank you all so much for dedicating so much of your attention to the things that will ground the next 2 days. This allows us to all have a shared dialogue. Awesome. But now that we've heard other people's ideas, we want to hear your ideas. We want to hear what your solution is. I hate the word solution. They're all stopgaps, but that's okay. Unlike these speakers, you're going to have 1 minute. You saw that these speakers were very good at keeping to their time, and also that I will keep you to your time. But what we're going to do is, if you have an idea to pitch, we're going to give everyone 5 minutes to write it out. So it's on, most people have big pieces of paper on their table. So you're going to stand up here and you're going to get your pitch while you hold your sign. And it might be, if you like drawing stick figures like I do, it can be illustrative. It can be 3 big words. It can be tiny print while you write out everything, but I don't know quite why you would do that. And you're going to take a minute to explain it. So we're gonna line up over here, and then we're going to filter up here. We're going to present, holding your sign, and you're going to stand over here. I'm going to cut it off after, I don't know, 12 presentations. So we'll probably end up with about 7 people standing up, just guessing based on that previous experience. And then 5 more people or so are going to be like, oh, that reminds me of this idea. I'm going to go stand in line. But at a certain point, I'm going to cut you off. This also means that if you hear someone presenting about something that you feel really strongly about, and it's sort of like what you would go for, don't come up here and stand in line. Go argue lovingly with them about how to make their idea better. Okay? Does all this make sense? Everybody good? Okay. Sorry, I need your approval. That's what I thrive on. Okay, so does this make sense to everyone? We're going to take 5 minutes, write down your idea, and then I'll be shouting again or talking gently into the microphone again when we're ready to go. So if you'll line up over here when you're ready, I'll get us good to go. So 5 minutes.
Nice to meet you. You guys